Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig through interesting sources, connect the dots, and bring you the key insights, all tailored for you. Today, we're tackling something you experience constantly, maybe without even thinking about it much. Humidity. We've been looking at excerpts from The Ubiquitous Nature of Humidity, and our goal here is really to unpack it all. We'll get into the science, the history, where it's highest and lowest, how it hits your health, and even some practical tips. It's about giving you that deeper understanding of this thing that's just always there. And I'm excited to explore this with our expert, who's ready to really illuminate the whole topic. Okay, so let's start right there. When you walked outside and the air just feels heavy, that sticky feeling on a hot day, what is humidity, scientifically speaking?
Yeah, that feeling is exactly it. Fundamentally, humidity is just the amount of water vapor present in the air. And the key thing is it's vapor, so water in its gas form.
Yeah.
Invisible. It's not like fog or rain, which are liquid droplets. It's mixed right into the air.
Okay, so when we say, ugh, it's so humid, we're sensing more of this invisible water gas. But how do we actually measure that? I hear about absolute and relative humidity. What's the difference in, practical terms?
Right, good question. Those are the main ways. Absolute humidity is pretty straightforward. It's the actual mass of water vapor in a specific volume of air. Think grams per cubic meter, like counting the water molecules. But relative humidity, that's one you usually hear in weather reports, and it's what really drives how humid it feels. It's a percentage. It tells you how much water vapor is in the air compared to the maximum amount the air could possibly hold at that specific temperature.
Ah, so it's relative to the air's capacity, which changes with temperature. So if it hits 100% relative humidity, does that literally mean the air is completely full, can't hold anymore?
Exactly. 100% means the air is saturated. It's holding every last bit of water vapor it can at that temperature. Any more water vapor added, or if the temperature drops even slightly, that vapor has to condense back into liquid. That's when you get rain or fog or dew, or just that really heavy, sticky feeling because your sweat has nowhere to evaporate into.
Right, because the air is already full. That makes total sense. Okay, so we know what it is, how we measure it, but where does all this water vapor come from? What's the basic science making it happen?
Well, the main engine behind it all is evaporation. Water turns into vapor from all sorts of places: oceans, lakes, rivers, even damp soil, and, importantly, plants through transpiration. It absorbs energy, mostly from the sun, and changes state from liquid to gas, rising up. The sun's heat is really crucial. It powers this whole process on a massive scale. And that energy absorption is why evaporation itself feels cool, like when sweat evaporates off your skin.
The sun is key then. Does that mean higher temperatures always mean higher humidity? How are temperature and humidity linked?
They're very closely linked. Think of it like this. Warm air has more energy. The molecules are zipping around faster, creating more space between them. So warm air literally has a greater capacity to hold water vapor compared to cold air. That's why those really muggy, humid days are usually hot days. The air can hold a lot more moisture. Conversely, cold air, like in winter, just can't hold much moisture. That leads to that dry air feeling, dry skin.
Oh, okay. So it's not just a weather thing then, is it? Seems like it touches on a lot more.
Oh, absolutely. It goes way beyond the weather forecast. Humidity levels affect our comfort, definitely, but also our health, our mood, even how well we sleep. And it doesn't stop there. It impacts things like electronics, wooden furniture, even the structure of buildings over time. It's pervasive.
Wow. Okay. Clearly affects us a lot today. But this isn't new. How did people deal with this way back? Like ancient civilizations, they didn't have hygrometers.
No, they didn't. But they were incredibly observant. They understood the effects of humidity and adapted brilliantly. Look at the ancient Egyptians. They built with these massive, thick walls. It wasn't just for shade. Those walls acted like thermal batteries. They slowed down heat transfer, keeping interiors cooler and, importantly, more stable in terms of moisture. Less fluctuation. It was smart, passive design.
That is smart. And what about really humid places, like tropical regions in Asia?
Right. In those constantly humid environments, you see different strategies. Homes built on stilts were common. That wasn't just about floods or damp ground. It allowed air to circulate underneath the house, carrying away moisture. They often had high ceilings, specific roof designs, materials chosen to promote airflow. Even clothing, loose, breathable fabrics like cotton or linen weren't just fashion. They were essential for comfort. It shows a real deep, practical understanding.
It really does. A long history of living with humidity. So fast forward to today. Thinking globally, where does humidity really dominate? Where is it highest?
Generally, you'll find the highest humidity in regions near the equator. Places like Singapore, Indonesia, the Amazon basin, parts of India, Central Africa. It's that combination of Strong sunlight, driving evaporation, lots of rainfall, and large bodies of water or dense forests constantly releasing moisture.
Okay, the tropics. And the opposite. Deserts must be low humidity, right? Even if they're incredibly hot.
Exactly the opposite. Deserts, like the Sahara or the Atacama, have extremely low humidity. The air temperature can be scorching, but there's very little water available to evaporate into that air. That's why your skin and lips get so dry so quickly in a desert, even though it's hot. The air's just thirsty for moisture.
So depending where you are, you're either battling too much moisture or too little.
Precisely. And that directly leads to why people use humidifiers in dry climates or during winter when heating systems dry out the air, and why dehumidifiers are so essential in damp basements or humid climates to pull that excess moisture out. It's all about trying to find that balance indoors.
Which brings up a really important point. How does all this actually affect us? Our bodies. We feel sticky or dry, but what's happening physiologically?
Well, when humidity is high, the big issue is cooling down. Our main cooling mechanism is sweating, right? Sweat evaporates, taking heat with it. But if the air is already loaded with water vapor, your sweat can't evaporate efficiently, so it just sits on your skin. You feel sticky, clammy, and you overheat more easily. This can lead to fatigue, dehydration, and it can really aggravate things like allergies and asthma because mold and dust mites thrive in damp conditions.
Yeah, that sticky feeling is the worst. What about the other extreme, low humidity?
Low humidity poses different problems. Because the air is so dry, it actively pulls moisture from wherever it can find it, including your body. So you get dry skin, chapped lips, maybe even nosebleeds because the nasal passages dry out, dry eyes, scratchy throat. It can make you feel generally uncomfortable and potentially more vulnerable to catching colds as those protective mucous membranes aren't working as well.
So not too high, not too low, there's a sweet spot we're aiming for.
Definitely. For most people, the ideal indoor relative humidity range is somewhere between 40% and 60%. That range tends to be the most comfortable, best for respiratory health, and less conducive to mold growth or static electricity buildup.
Okay, that's super helpful. So let's talk practical tips. What can you actually do to manage humidity levels at home? Say it's too high first.
Right, for high humidity, a dehumidifier is your best bet if it's a persistent issue. Air conditioners also remove moisture, especially if they have a dry setting. Simple things help too. Ventilate, open windows when it's cooler and drier outside, like early morning or late evening. Use exhaust fans religiously in kitchens when cooking and bathrooms when showering to get that steam out immediately. Maybe move some houseplants outside temporarily as they release moisture. And wear light, breathable clothing like cotton.
Good tips. And if the problem is the opposite air that's too dry, maybe in winter with the heat on.
For low humidity, a humidifier is the direct solution. Put moisture back in the air. You can also do simpler things. Boil water on the stove for a bit, steam is water vapor. Or place bowls of water near heat sources, like radiators, so the water evaporates slowly. And hydrate yourself. Drink plenty of water, use lip balm and moisturizer for your skin.
Excellent practical advice. What about those little gadgets, hygrometers? Are they worth getting to check levels at home?
Oh, absolutely. Hygrometers are great. They're usually inexpensive, and they give you the actual number, the relative humidity percentage in your room. It takes the guesswork out. You know, if you need to turn on the humidifier, the dehumidifier, or maybe just open a window. Really useful tool.
Good to know. Okay, before we wrap this up, let's touch on some maybe surprising humidity facts, things people might not realize.
Sure. Here's one. Paper. Books, documents. They can actually warp or get wavy edges in high humidity. The paper fibers absorb moisture from the air and swell up unevenly.
Ah, that explains why old books sometimes feel damp or look crinkly.
Exactly. And it affects music too. Wooden instruments, guitars, violins, pianos, wood expands slightly in high humidity and contracts in low. It can actually change the instrument's tone and tuning. And here's a common one. Frizzy hair. That's humidity at work. Your hair absorbs moisture, causing the protein structures within the hair strands to swell and, well, frizz out.
Huh. So bad hair days are basically applied science.
Pretty much. And one more, which is quite serious. Humidity impacts how airborne viruses spread. Research suggests that both very dry air and very humid air can sometimes help viruses travel or survive longer. That moderate range, around 40–60%, seems to be less favorable for many viruses. It really highlights how important good ventilation and managing indoor air quality are for health, not just comfort.
Wow, so it's in our weather, our homes, our health, our hair, our books, even our music. It really is ubiquitous, more complex than just feeling sticky or dry.
It truly is. It's this constant environmental factor often working behind the scenes, and understanding it just helps you navigate your world a bit better, I think.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. We hope this gives you a much richer understanding of humidity and its surprising reach into almost every aspect of daily life.
Yes, and maybe a reminder that understanding these sort of invisible forces in our environment is a great way to take better care of ourselves and the spaces we live in.
A really insightful point to end on. So here's something to think about. If something as seemingly simple and ever-present as humidity holds such deep scientific, historical, and health-related implications, what other everyday phenomena might be hiding surprising layers of insight just waiting for you to uncover?